AITAH, for confronting my dad's new wife at their anniversary dinner. This one's been eating at me for a few days, and I really need an outside perspective. I'm a 24-year-old guy. When I was 16, my life basically imploded. My parents had what I thought was a pretty solid marriage. Sure, they had their occasional arguments, but nothing that screamed divorce to me. Then, out of nowhere, at least to me, my dad sat me and my little sister down one evening and told us that he and Mom were separating. What he didn't say, but what quickly came out, was that he'd been cheating on my mom with a coworker, now his wife, Susan. My mom was wrecked. I'd never seen her like that before. She cried constantly, stopped eating for a while, and barely got out of bed some days. She tried to hide how bad it was, but I was old enough to see through it. I basically had to grow up overnight help with my sister, keep things somewhat together around the house, and be her emotional support because, frankly, she had no one else. My dad didn't check in much after he moved out. When he did, it was usually to argue over logistics or to try to make himself the victim. Susan, to me, was the woman who blew up my family. I've never yelled at her, never cussed her out, never even told her off until last weekend. I've always been civil, cold maybe, but never outright rude. I do it for my dad, even though our relationship has been strained since the divorce. Anyway, last weekend was their 5-year wedding anniversary, and they decided to throw a fancy dinner party at a restaurant. They invited family and a few friends. I didn't want to go, but my dad asked me personally, said it would mean a lot if I came, so I did. I even brought a small gift. Dinner was fine, awkward as hell, but fine, until Susan stood up to give a speech. She starts talking about how grateful she is for her wonderful husband, how proud she is of the life they've built, etc., which, okay, fine, it's their dinner. But then she starts going on about how happy she is to have a blended family and how she's come to love my name like her own son. That hit a nerve, a big one. I sat there, nodding along, forcing a smile, but my blood was boiling. I felt like I was being painted into this picture-perfect family fantasy that didn't include the years of pain it took to get there, pain she helped cause. After the speech, when people were getting up and mingling, I quietly pulled her aside and said something like, "I don't appreciate being talked about like I'm part of some happy blended family." That speech felt fake. You helped break up my parents' marriage. You don't get to rewrite history. She blinked like I slapped her. Then she said I was being childish and rude on her special night. I told her if she wanted respect, maybe she should have started by respecting someone else's marriage before inserting herself into it. She got teary, said I was cruel, and walked out of the restaurant. My dad saw her leaving, got the story from someone, and came over fuming. He told me I ruined the night, that Susan was trying to extend an olive branch and I snapped it in half. He said I embarrassed him in front of everyone. My aunt, his sister, told me afterward I should have just smiled through it and not caused drama, that it was just a speech and I didn't have to take it so personally. But here's the thing, I did take it personally, because it was personal. She talked about loving me like a son when I have never once felt like her stepson, let alone anything close to a son. She's not in my life. She was never there for me during the hardest years of my life. And her involvement with my dad started before the divorce, I know this for a fact. So yeah, maybe I was petty. Maybe I should have just let it slide for one night. But part of me feels like I've been swallowing this resentment for 8 years, and she chose a public dinner to pretend like we're some kind of happy family. Now I've got my dad icing me out, my aunt calling me dramatic, and even my little sister saying I could have picked a better time. So AITAH,